What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Some MMA content for you. Do me a favor, take a moment, hit the like button, subscribe button, criticism in the comment section, Twitter. Shutdown Safety is my username. Pleased to be joined once again by Anthony Smith. We're going to take a look at UFC Fight Night 85 from Brisbane, Australia. It's on FX1. We're going to do the main card with our predictions. Love to know your guys in the comment section. So first fight, Beck Rawlings versus Sohi Ham. On the feet, I think Ham can control this fight, really. She needs to push the pace, stay aggressive, control the distance. The only worries I have is Rawlings' ability to weather that storm, maybe establish a clinch and get this down to the ground. The fact that Ham has continually fought this size disadvantage, I think it's going to help her by default because she's became a more technical fighter. She's a more well-rounded fighter. I think she's going to be well-versed in the game plan she needs here, and I think she's going to execute it extremely well and actually walk away with the upset.
All right, now for the second fight on the main card is Steve Bose versus James Te-Huna. I think that this is a really exciting fight. I think that both guys are going to look to stand and trade. They both have power in their hands. I think that at the end of the day, everybody has a puncher's chance. I do think that James Te-Huna has probably the more technical boxing, mixes his punches in better with his kicks. Steve Bose tends to get a little bit wild, get a little bit over-aggressive, and leaves his chin out there a little bit and does get a little bit sloppy. So I would look for James Te-Huna to sit back and catch Steve coming in and counter him. James Te-Huna is a great counter fighter, and my pick is going to be James Te-Huna will probably knock out Steve Bose in the second round.
Next fight on the card is going to be Dan Kelly versus Antonio Carlos Jr., your typical UFC cliche fight. You take the older, established fighter, in this case, has an Olympic pedigree, against the younger fighter looking to kind of build his name. In many cases, the discussion of this fight becomes more exciting than the fight itself. I think Junior is almost designed to beat Kelly. He's got a wide stance. He defends the takedowns while doing a lot of damage. And listen, Kelly at 38 years old just is not going to be able to withstand that. I think Junior is going to be more than likely willing to overpower him and basically consider it a passing of the torch, walk out with an early win.
And then we move right on to Jake Matthews versus Johnny Cage. I think that this is, on the card as a whole, I think this is one of the biggest mismatches to me personally. It may not look like that on paper, but I think that Johnny Cage is just head and shoulders better than Jake Matthews. I've seen Jake Matthews fight a couple times, and it just overall looks like Johnny Cage is better everywhere. I don't really think that Johnny Cage is going to have any problems anywhere. I think he's a more well-rounded fighter. I think that he's obviously the bigger fighter. He's extremely big for his weight class. And he's coming into this fight with loads of confidence. He's got a great team behind him in Alliance, and he's got great training partners, and I think that Johnny Cage cruises to a victory pretty easily. All right, that brings us to our co-main event, is Neil Magny versus Hector Lombard. I think this is an extremely interesting fight, just given the differences in the body types. Hector Lombard is a short, stocky, extremely explosive power puncher with a great ground game and some great judo throws. Obviously, he's got a great team behind him, so he's going to be ready. Magny is a tall, lankier fighter. He's got a really underrated takedown defense. I think his ground game and his grappling is a little underrated. And he does really well using his distance and range. I think a lot of people are probably counting Neil Magny out of this fight, but I think that he's going to look to stay on the outside, try to catch Hector Lombard coming in, being wild, and try to weather that storm a little bit as well, and try to get Hector Lombard to try to settle in a little bit in the fight and take him apart from the outside. And Hector Lombard has to stay on the inside if he wants to win this fight. He's got to get on the inside. He's got to get him up against the cage. And I think he's got to drag Neil Magny down. I don't think he has the ability to stand and really trade shots with Neil Magny. So picking this fight, I'm gonna say I think Neil Magny's going to win the decision. I think he's going to be very patient. He's going to really pick Hector Lombard apart, and I think he's going to wear him out. I think he's going to cruise unanimous decision.
Well, I have Magny for a bunch of different reasons. It's always hard to judge a fighter who has time off. In this case, Lombard's been shelved for over a year after testing positive for DTM. During that time, Magny established himself. He's got a 4-1 record that just happened to be off some of the best talent in the division, and he looked better every single fight. in my opinion, Lombard doesn't really even deserve this caliber of return. But, he's got a great clinch game, like you said. I think similar to what you said, Magny's going to be best served to establish his range, but without losing his composure and throwing those wild punches like we've seen. But Magny is razor sharp too, and he's also shown that he's got the endurance, he's got the stamina. Lombard obviously doesn't have that because he needed to go back to steroids to take that shortcut, and I don't think, in the words of Conor McGregor, he's put in the real work, the honest work that's needed, and Magny is going to send him off by dominating everything outside of the first 3 minutes of this fight.
I 100% agree with that. I think that I was going to add that in my breakdown, and I am very curious to see how Hector Lombard is going to compete without being on a performance-enhancing drug. I think that you're seeing it all over the UFC. Guys are coming in much different than they were before the USADA the drug testing policies were implemented. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that Neil Magny has ever been on performance-enhancing drugs. His cardio has always held up. He's always been extremely well-conditioned, and he's always been there for the full 15 minutes. So I would say anything past the first round is Neil Magny all the way. All right on to our main event. We have Frank Mir versus Mark Hunt. I think that this is as true of a striker versus grappler match that as you can get. I think that it's very clear what both these guys' game plans going in are, and Frank Mir has gone on record saying that his jiu-jitsu is more dangerous than Mark Hunt's striking. I find that to be very untrue. In my humble opinion, I believe that Frank Mir is going to have a hard time taking down Mark Hunt because he has to get into that striking range. And it doesn't matter who you are in the world. I believe that if you're in that striking range with Mark Hunt for too long, he has a great opportunity of catching you. One of the biggest things that I see being an issue in this fight is the question in Frank Mir's chin. In some of his past fights, there has been some shots that may not have put Frank down or rocked him or hurt him early on in his career. You've seen in the Dos Santos fight. You've seen it in I believe it was the Travis Brown fight. He was hurt with some shots and normally probably wouldn't have hurt him. I think going into a fight questioning how good your chin is with a person like Mark Hunt is a very bad thing. But that said, if he does get Mark Hunt to the ground, I think it's going to be a very, very short night for Mark Hunt. This one was a toss-up for me. It really depends on who's going to be able to impose their will. I think Frank Mir is still a little bit in his head. I think that he's trying to do his best to stay relevant. I don't really think that Mark Hunt cares. I think he wants to just go out there and fight. As a breakdown analyst, I look a lot into people's mental game plans or kind of how they are as a person, just as much as I look at their skills. I think that matters just as much. I think that matters just as much as anything else. So, with that said, I think that Mark Hunt is going to move well. I think he's going to hit a lot of angles, and I think he's going to wait until Frank Mir kind of wades into that striking distance, like he tends to do in his last fights. Even though Frank Mir does probably has the reach advantage, he's a little bit taller. Mark Hunt's shown that he's able to strike with some of the best strikers in the world that are much taller than him. So I think that as Frank wades in, like he tends to do with a lot of other guys, I think he's going to catch a couple shots, and I think that Mark Hunt is going to catch him.
Well, let me just say that it's nice to see fighters that have really resurged honest careers. Hunt's transformation started a few years ago. Mir's has been a little bit more recent, but it's a testament as why they can still be main event status at 36 and 41. And while I guess I kind of want to say this would hold up to maybe a slugfest billing that both fighters are making it out to be, you've also got two aging fighters that both seem to get winded very quickly because they both try to come out and keep this unrealistic pace going. I think if you add in any type of clinch, any type of groundwork, each fighter is basically going to turn this into a very laborious affair and probably a long and drawn-out, boring fight. There's no question they both have that one knockout hit power, but to me, I give Mir the nod because he is a little bit younger. I believe he's a little bit more well-rounded, and he also seems to really be fighting with more urgency, like the urgency we saw out of Mark Hunt from 2011 to 2013. I think mentally, when Mark Hunt went on that little bit of a tear, I think that's where Frank Mir is now. But both of these fighters know the end of the line is nearing, and they have to do damage now. This may be their last opportunity to do it. So I'm going to give the edge to to Frank Mir. You guys can leave all your comments down below. Myself and Anthony are going to come back and do a recap after the fight. You can see how good or bad our picks went. I'll leave them down in the description if you did make it this far in this video. But again, appreciate you guys checking it out, and we'll be back in the week with more content.